All right, good morning. This morning, we're going to try to complete verses 4 and 5 of Amos chapter 2. We're going to try to complete this. There might be a part 3. But this is part 2 of Judah and its behavior that's warranting judgment from God per the prophecy of Amos. And in part 1, we went over the disobedience that Judah harbored for God's law. And we just scratched the surface dealing with Judah, trusting their father's lies. So no need for an in-depth introduction here, because part 1 can be heard in the lesson in part 1 of Judah before this one. So Amos chapter 2, verses 4 through 5, part 2. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Judah, and for 4, I will not turn away its punishment, because they have despised the law of the Lord, and have not kept his commandments. Their lies led them astray, lies which their fathers followed. But I will send a fire upon Judah, and it shall devour the palaces of Jerusalem. So their lies led them astray. The same lies in which Judah's fathers walked. Now Judah's father's lies were worshiping other gods, idolatry, false gods. If anyone is familiar with the scriptures, will experience the accounts of the Jewish nation historically worshiping false gods. Israel, for that matter, as well. And we will go over the dealings with Israel in the coming weeks. So Judah did not exclusively commit and devote themselves as a way of life to the covenantal relationship with God. Judah did not turn to God for everything. Judah did not give to God everything. So let's look ahead real quick, far into Amos, way down the line in chapter 5 real quick. Amos will bring this up in coming lessons, but it applies every bit to Judah, the chosen people of God, now as it does Israel as well. Amos chapter 5, verse 25. This is what Amos says, speaking to the people on God's behalf. Did you offer me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? Did you offer me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? You bet they did. Out there in the experience of the wilderness, they constructed the tabernacle. They gave up their own wages. They gave up their profits in building that tabernacle, just as God had instructed them to do, under the direction and supervision of Moses. Boy, they kept the Sabbath too. They offered the sacrifices as well. The sacrifices as they went through their wilderness experience for 40 years. Yes, they did. They sure did offer sacrifices and offerings. But that was not Judah's major malfunction. Their problem, Judah's problem, well, it's in Amos chapter 5, verse 26. And I'll begin in verse 25 for clarity. Did you offer me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? You also carried Sikkoth, your king, and Kion, your idols, the star of your gods, which you made for yourselves. You also carried Sikkoth, your king, and Kion, your idols, the star of your gods, which you made for yourselves. Now that's a problem. That's a problem. Judah were not in an exclusive relationship with God. Now you can read through Kings and Chronicles, those Old Testament Bible books, and see the historical accounts of the devastating picture of Judah and Israel. these nations. Now, 2 Chronicles, chapters 24 through 28, for those of you who are not Christian by culture, those who make sustenance of God's words, I recommend 2 Chronicles, chapters 24 through 28, to be this week's Bible feeding, to experience the shortcomings of God's chosen people. They go and offer sacrifices to the gods of Edom, who they just conquered with God's assistance. And then they take Edom's God and sit it down, and they knelt down to it, to worship it. It's like putting on I hate to drag this fella into this, but he is just one idol of many. This is just an example. It's like putting on a Tom Brady jersey and dropping everything, kneeling down to the Patriots or the Broncos on the Lord's Day. That's what that's like. To modernize it a little bit. So why would a special people of God, a chosen people, violate their covenant? All they had to do to have everything God promised them was to be obedient and faithful to the covenant that God had made with them. Now, why would they do that? And I must ask, why today? After all these literary accounts in the Bible that we read and learn of the blessings and the judgments, why do we ask the same questions today of ourselves? Why? Why do we go and violate the covenant that the Creator of humanity and the world, Jesus Christ, why do so many violate the covenant Christ has called us into? Now, this is Judah's crime. They rejected, they despised the law of the Lord and kept His commandments not. Now, what leads to covenant unfaithfulness with our God? That was a question for the nation of Judah, and a legitimate question for all the congregants worldwide that gather in a building with stained glass and a steeple on top. What leads to covenant unfaithfulness with our God? The fundamentally unlearned religious folk may say, I'm not bowing down. I'm not bowing down to Judah's idols, Sikkoth, and or any star god. That's not my problem. Okay, I'm sure it's not. I've never been tempted to bow down to some star god. I mean, I can see the stars in the night sky. When the city lights don't contaminate the sky too much, I can see those stars in the night sky, okay? They're beautiful. And God's power is displayed in the manner in which they dot the night sky. Not worshiping them. Just making an observation of the glory of God. Now, it wasn't so much the specific lies, the specific idols in which Judah's fathers walked. It was the lie. The lie is the problem to us too. And the lie is God is not enough to warrant as a way of life, to warrant exclusive devotion to Him. God's not compelling enough to surrender our whole existence, our entire being, our entire security and happiness into an exclusive relationship with Him. God's just not enough, right? Especially if this relationship, as defined in the Bible, the Gospels, means that we are going to have Him direct our life by His voice, Everyone has a voice. But what voice? What voice? Ask some of these criminals, you know. Ask some of these homewreckers, some of these adulterers, you know. Ask a pervert. What voice? Tell me a little bit about this voice you got talking to you. You see, the believer in Christ surrenders their life and directs their ways to the old paths and allows Christ's voice to guide through the particulars throughout the days in a day-to-day existence. The believer trusts in His provision for satisfaction and joy. Do you want to be God's possession? Or the popular crowd, the cool crowd's possession that has the wrong voice guiding their mind, guiding their body and spirit? See, the believer in Christ is a separated people, God's possession, relating with the world as His priest, being a representative of Jesus in our particular individual walks in this world. And many will find you odd, obtuse, because they have never invited the Spirit into their untamed, unregenerate heart. Well, you genuine, authentic believers in Christ, you all can see right through the plain church in another. And you can see the lie. I'm just not sure God is that good. I'm not sure God has that much influence and weight. I'm not sure God is worth loving Him over video games, loving Him over girls' night out, missing fellowship for the Super Bowl, or sacrificing a favorite TV show for personal Bible study. I'm not sure God's worth missing out on these things. That's a lie. Then the lie keeps on going. I don't mind giving God my time. I know He sent His Son to the cross, and my sins are forgiven. I'll take that. I'll take that forgiveness from Him. And when I'm on social media and someone posts a Bible verse, I'll give him a like. I'll give him some likes, and I'll share it on my page. I'll put on some praise music when a passenger rides in the car with me as a way of sharing Christianity. But to give every bit of my life according to God's standards? Well, my cool friends will think I'm not cool or hip, huh? I can't love my neighbor as myself. That means I have to show love to the guy my friends don't like. That could make me a social outcast. I don't know if I can do that. That's a lie. When we put God aside and fall prey to society and culture for the sake of blending in, God is replaced with idols. The idols take up that space where you're being led. This material world is... Look, I'll get into this the next lesson. We're going to have to do a part 3, but this material world, it is not reality. In the grand scheme of things, when you take your last breath, this is not reality. It's not reality. So we're going to, I thought I was going to move into verse 6 of chapter 2 next week, but I've got more to say on this. And pertaining to Judah. We still have to get into the palaces of Jerusalem. So there will be next week a part 3 of Judah. Till next time.